Good morning, everybody. Hope that you all had a good weekend. I'm looking forward to the week ahead. I'm still actually on my weekend now. I'm doing this on a Sunday afternoon today, seeing as I'm going to be very, very busy first thing Monday morning. So I figured I'd get it done now and then we'll get it out to the general public first thing Monday. So if we look at what happened in the markets last week, we had a bit of a mixed bag for the different parts of the world. In the US, we saw the Dow down 1.2%. Third week of falls in the row for the Dow. The Nasdaq was down 0.4%. The FTSE, however, was up, albeit 0.2%. The Nikkei was also up 1.9%, as was the DAX, which was up 0.8%. We saw China, the Shanghai market, fall 3%. So some areas did well, some areas did not so well. But again, if we're looking at the longer term approach, I know I sometimes sound like a broken record, but there are guys out there that can gain you long-term sustainable capital growth. A good example, Terry Smith, who most of you that are with me know, I use his funds. He's 8.2% up year to date. So there are results again that you can't argue with. On the currency side, we saw the dollar edge slightly stronger against all the major currencies during the last week, albeit nothing was less than or no movements of more than 1%. So a pretty flat week on the currency markets. So what we've got now is we've got a 113 euro versus dollar. We've got 143 sterling versus dollar, and dollar versus Australian dollar at 138. The Nikkei at 108. So all in all, a strong dollar. It continues to remain strong, and there is talk about possibly only one interest rate rise happening this year, on the basis that they don't want the dollar to get too much stronger because of the negative effect that has on earnings and US exports. So we're talking about, possibly from 3 interest rate rises to 1. So perhaps we're only going to see a 0.25% rise during the whole of 2016. You've heard me say it before. I think this interest rate environment is here to stay for a long time. Donald Trump was talking the other day. He certainly has a very dovish approach in that he doesn't want to see interest rates going up, although any moves by the Fed might possibly happen before he gets elected, should he do so. We will see, ultimately him putting in place somebody else who has a dovish policy, i.e. wants to keep interest rates as low as possible. So technology, as most of you know, is one of my favourite themes. There's been a hell of a lot of talk about Apple recently. You know that I like to talk about the bundle of 4, and actually this week the bundle of 4 was down 0.2%. The Nasdaq was down 0.4%. So again, although it's not ideal being down, we're still seeing it as a better play than the market as a whole. I'm taking Apple off the table now. Apple was up marginally this week at 2.4. Sorry, Apple was down again to another 2.5% after its drastic falls this year. I've been listening a lot to various commentators on Apple, and although I think it's still a hold, and I think if you've got exposure to it through a fund or you own it, I still think, if you're looking at the long-term 5-10 year outlook, then yes, Apple is still a good buy. However, I am concerned that because 67% of its revenue derives from iPhones, there's a lot of pressure now mounting on whether or not the iPhone 7 is going to deliver. And especially with the very fickle marketplace that we've got right now, I wouldn't be buying into Apple right now until perhaps the dust has settled after the launch of the iPhone 7 and we see where we are there. So possibly looking at the end of the year, because I think the iPhone 7 is due to come out around about October or November this year. So let's just keep Apple as a hold for now. And what I'm going to do next week, I'm going to replace the Apple in my bundle of 4 with Amazon, because I think Amazon has certainly gained the momentum. It's been up over 60% in the last 12 months to be up there batting with the big boys. And as we know, Amazon is a huge part of everybody's life. Its effects has had a huge impact on the retail sector, on the high street. We saw Macy's and Gap have very terrible weeks when it came to, or years so far when it came to earnings, and that's a direct impact of more people buying stuff online. As an aside to that as well, I'm taking property in high streets off of my buy list as well, because I think that ultimately you'll see the death, is a horrible word to say, but possibly the death of the high street is going to have an impact on property. Some of these property prices are very, very high commercial value properties, and once they become less desirable, you're going to see that have a domino effect on the rest of the property prices, in my opinion. Of course, poor old BHS, as we know, has bit the dust recently. So if we're looking at the sporting front, was pretty quiet this weekend, certainly from the sports that I enjoy. I'm still waiting to see whether my team, the Hammers, make it to Europe, because as I mentioned before, today is Sunday. All being well, they will, which should be a great season for us. We've got the European Championships to look forward to, internationals in June, so all of the football fans, no need to be too worried by the fact that it's the last day of the Premiership, because we have a summer full of it as well. So to finish with, I'm just going to talk very quickly about pensions, because I know I've gone over once again, but people accuse me sometimes of, scaremongering with pensions, and especially defined benefit pensions and final salary schemes in the UK. I appreciate that some people can't do anything about it, but if you're overseas, you can. An interesting fact is that the Pension Protection Fund, which now helped out Tata Steel and BHS in the last couple of weeks, to name but a couple, a lot of people think that it gives you 90% of your due pension, but that's not actually the case. It's actually capped. And I'll give you an example, that if you retired at 60, the cap that the Pension Protection Fund will enable you to gain from your previously defined benefit or final salary scheme is £32,000. Now, whilst not an insignificant amount of money, there's a lot of people out there who would rather be, living their retirement on more than that, and believe they would have earned it. So more food for thought there. Again, I've gone over my time considerably, 7.5 minutes. Hope it hasn't taken up too much of your time. Enjoy the rest of your week. Cheerio.